Welcome, 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 my creatives. Welcome to a Cuppa Creativity in the Literary Lounge, the place where writing doesn't have to suck. I am your host, Kynda Faythe, and I'm also the founder, the executive director of Faythe Publishing, Inc. Today I'd like to actually acknowledge, and maybe we're going to do a little celebration. We are going to celebrate children's authors, children's book authors, and illustrators. As actually, I believe it's it should just be a national holiday, Children's Authors and Illustrator Week. So this whole entire week, we are dedicating our work or our attention to children's books, the authors and the illustrators. So I want to definitely celebrate that. I want to address about how Faythe Publishing finds amazing material and how that matters. And then also I kind of just want to throw out you a couple, like a challenge and some tips if you would like to try out writing your own story. But before we start, I have to have a structure or else I will go everywhere. I want to do a couple of shout outs. First off are my social media people, Zoe H and Cole E. They are doing an amazing job. I love that they switch things up. They're having a good time, and I've actually received lots of comments about how positive they look, and I appreciate them so much. My illustrators, I'm adding more all the time, so I definitely say if you like to illustrate or if you have ideas, please make sure that you contact me. I'm up for any kind of help. One, I'm biased. We all know this. My first illustrator was my daughter. Because you know what, she works for free and she lived with me at the time and she had no choice, right? So Kate Nemhard is one of my first illustrators. Raylena Hargrove is another illustrator and author. Pat Olney, she does really amazing, detailed, hand-drawn sketches of rescue dogs. And my newest one is Kaylee Maldonado. She is just like a little animated goddess. The things that she comes up with has been really, really fun. So those are my illustrators. My authors, my children book authors are Logan Calder, Crystal Diaz, Nadia Avedano, again, Raylena, and I also have a new one coming up, Kathleen Huxley, which we are in the works of working on her Ironside Rose story. And my other shout out I'd like to give is my new beta reader. I got a text from Abigail Shepard, who I absolutely love and adore, and you know what? She's a pretty amazing writer as well. She's just like, I want to read for you. I'm like, yay! So that is good. So if you are interested in illustrating or writing a children's book or even being a beta reader, right? You're just reading all of our material. You're double checking, triple checking, making sure things make sense. Let me know. So you're like, why? Why do I need to let you know? Well, as I said earlier, I am the executive director, the founder of Faythe Publishing, Inc. And if you haven't figured it out by now, we are a nonprofit publishing company, and we really strive to serve underrepresented voices. And we do this through publication, through writing programs, internships and job opportunities, and then other services. So our goal is to help underrepresented voices be heard. Our hashtag is supporting the writing journey. Now, while I just mentioned, beta readers and illustrators and social media, maybe you don't think about that in the writing journey, but I will tell you in this day and age, this is all part of the journey. Everything needs support. This is not like a Band-Aid approach. This is a blanket approach. We wrap ourselves in a whole entire story, right? Because together, collectively, we are the storytellers and the audience, and then we make this legacy. Because every single talent matters. Every voice matters. And then every story deserves to be told. And with that combination, we get to inspire others. So, I don't know. I think that's amazing. But what helps me get inspired, you guys know where I'm going with this, is my daily mantra. And if you didn't know, sorry, that's my catchphrase today. You didn't know. The daily mantra. A mantra is something that can help with concentration. It can help with positive reinforcement. It can actually also be a self-fulfilled prophecy, which is one of my favorite communication theories, honestly. And it's when you say something or hear something over and over and over and over again, then you start to believe it. Now, a lot of times you hear this in a negative spin, right? If you are called a certain name or expletive or whatever, you actually start to believe it, even if it's not true. Well, I think that you can do the same exact thing with a positive spin. And so that is honestly why I've started this mantra. I have done this mantra for, oh my gosh, years. I've done this in my classroom. I've done this at workshops. I've had people say it through a kazoo. I've had people like stand up on their chairs, kind of like a Dead Poet Society scene. I've had people put their hands over their heart. I've had people say the mantra before any kind of test or big event. So I don't know. This is just part of my thing. So I invite you to join in. Okay, are we ready? All right, let's begin. Today, I will face fear. Today, I will be brave. Today, I will struggle. Today, I will grow. Today, I will get through this. Huzzah! Jazz hands! And you have to do the huzzah and jazz hands, and you have to do it really kind of loudly if you really want it to work, right? I think sometimes the effort is all in the volume. I don't know. All right, let me move on to my first topic. Let's talk about this Children's Authors and Illustrator Weeks. I haven't done tons of research with regards to how long this has been around, but my background is in communication and literacy, and this has been around to help promote literacy. Now you're like, what's literacy, Kynda? Literacy is not just reading. Literacy is knowing how to use, listen, incorporate language. So for example, I am literate in English. Right? I can speak it, I can read it, I can write it, I can develop it, right? I am literate in English. I am not literate in game lingo, in game speak. That is a completely foreign language to me, right? Which is kind of hard because both of my kids are gamers and artists, and they talk about things that I have not the slightest, I don't understand the terminology, right? Or I am sort of literate in mechanics. Yeah, I can talk to you about air brakes. Sure. I can totally talk to you about flat tires. Yeah. But can I use flexibly, can I use the nomenclature that describes all of the things in an engine? No. So I'm not quite there. So when I look at literacy is using a language, whether it's English or math or mechanics or whatever, fluently. So when I'm thinking about children's authors and illustrators, it's to promote literacy. You are promoting your language or a language so they can read, they can write, they can speak, they can think, all in that language. So why is this important? Well, first off, your authors and your illustrators help make the story. So if you're on your computer or on your phone, hop on social media and look up your favorite authors. And even in your illustrators, and let them know that you appreciate them. I know this sounds cheesy, but I will tell you, every single little warm, positive, warm fuzzy of a note makes a huge difference. I would also tell you that you need to visit your local library, even a school library, a new or used bookstore. You can do an online store. You can do ebooks. I really think that the more you read, the more literate you are going to become. And you're kind of, I'm going to assume that most of my listeners are not kids, right? They're like, I'm not going to read a children's book. Read a children's book. I think it's going to help your perspective. So one of the things, if I've got 2 children. I mean, they're out of the house now. But hi, once you're a baby, you're always a baby, right? These stretch marks are for real. They will last with me forever. So therefore, I can call them my babies, right? So anyway, when my son was younger, he had lots of behavior issues. He was like, I love to call him my Satan spawn, because I will tell you, any kind of bad thing I did in a past life, this boy brought it to me. So he's not like that now. Thank goodness, we got it all out of his system early. But we would take him to the library. I would take him to the library, but he would have meltdowns all the time. And so I kind of developed, I call it speed dating, which is not good, but speed dating for books. And I've seen kind of things, if no one has ever experienced speed dating, it is really interesting. I had a friend of mine that used to run one in Portland, and it's almost like musical chairs. You just meet at a table, you've got an X amount of time to talk, and then they ring a buzzer, and then you switch chairs and you're talking to new people. And then hopefully, just hopefully, you might find a match and go out on a date. Well, that's kind of the viewpoint that I had with children's books. So I would give my son and I about 10 minutes because sometimes it's a lot to handle with little kids, and he was not one to linger. He was a man on a mission. Like, he had things to do, right? There was robots to build and dinosaurs to, conquer paper cups or whatever. So I would give him 10 minutes and a basket or a bag, depending on the library. And we would just find an area, and our goal was, I think that the maximum that you could check out were 20 books. And so in 10 minutes, he had to pick 20 books. Many times, we just picked random shelves and just started grabbing things, and then we would check them out and take them home. And then we would take our time reading them and looking at them and talking about them. And then hopefully we found a book that we liked. One, if you've never done that, I thoroughly, it's kind of like an extreme sport. Set yourself a timer, go through, find out what your maximum is, and just start grabbing books. So once you start doing that, then you're going to be connected to a book. And I will tell you some of my favorite books and even illustrators. One, I will say anything with Dr. Seuss. I mean, as a teacher, I think it's really fun. I love his rhyme scheme. It's bright. They're funny. Now, if you look at the history of Dr. Seuss, I mean, oh my gosh, I believe there's even a Dr. Seuss museum. I want to say it's in New Orleans, right? So, he used to work for the propaganda department during World War II. He used to also draw soft porn images. Now, that's hysterical. And now here he is, super famous about children's books. Anyway, I loved the Redfish, Bluefish. That was my son's favorite. I used to have that memorized, not so much now, but we would always read the Redfish, Bluefish, the Sleep book, and then I will tell you, one of my favorite books to give away as a graduation present is Oh, the Places You'll Go. So it's kind of uplifting. That one's kind of fun. Maurice Sendak wrote Where the Wild Things Are. Oh my gosh, I love the pictures. The story is super simple, but I loved the pictures. I think I could just lose myself in those. Any kind of Mother Goose story. I recently found, I think it was a turn of the century, not 2000s, right? An old version of Mother Goose. And it has nursery rhymes in it. And I really liked it because it didn't have tons of pictures, just enough to get my imagination going. A couple others, How Do Dinosaurs Say Goodnight? By Jane, I think it's Jolin, maybe, and Mark Teague. Any kind of Shel Silverstein books. Our famous one was A Giraffe and a Half, or Who Wants a Cheap Rhinoceros. I just think those are really fun. There is an audio out there of him actually reading it and some singing, which is a little weird because have you ever seen a picture and you just know the voice fits or the voice doesn't fit? I will tell you, when I heard a recording of Shel Silverstein, the voice did not fit. Now, what's also kind of interesting about what didn't fit. So Shel Silverstein used to hang out, I want to say, in Nashville. Nashville? I think it's Nashville. With all of these amazing country music artists. And so he actually hung out with Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson. And if anybody is a Johnny Cash fan, which you should, because the world would be a different place if we listened to more Johnny Cash, he wrote the song A Boy Named Sue, which is a really famous song that Johnny Cash recorded. And it talks about a story about this boy who is named Sue, and he gets all of these, he's always getting in trouble because people are making fun of his name and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then you find out at the very end why his dad named him Sue. And you're like, oh, that's kind of funny. It is. It's amazingly funny. So I think this, I don't know, the stories are just great. It brings up a positive memory. Another one that's kind of a fun, positive memory, any kind of Winnie the Pooh. Recently, I just spoke with children's book author Logan Calder, and he told me a story about how he and his wife bonded over the poetry of A.A. Milne. And I'm like, that is the most awesome thing ever. That is, I don't know, I just think that that's so romantic and super cool. And so I told him, you better get her some Winnie the Pooh things, for your anniversary, or, a random surprise. And then my other one that I really, really love, I used to coach forensics in drama. And a lot of times you would have prose, which is like storytelling. And I loved the story, I believe it's called The True Story of Three Little Pigs by A. Wolf. I think it's Skiska. I'm probably destroying that person's name, and I'm sorry. And Smith. And it tells the story of the three little pigs, but through the wolf's point of view, and how he was just trying to go next door and just borrow a cup of sugar, and then that mistake happened, and you can't just like leave the meat, so I had to eat it. And he has this wonderful like New York accent, right? So I definitely challenge you to go pick out some children's books. Just kind of just go back through memory lane. I think it would be really, really fun. I also think that you would probably look at the stories a little differently. Maybe you'll read it and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I like this? Or, oh my gosh, how did I not like this? Right? So how do you find those good stories? I think that you just need to be open. I think you need to explore. You are going to read some duds. That's all there is to it. You are going to read some duds. You are going to read some amazing and find some amazing, amazing books. I think it's kind of like when you're on like a music high, or even in vegetables. I'll say it. I love celery, or I love fill in the blank. And I'm like, I'm going to eat celery and peanut butter every single day until I get that sour piece. And then I'm like, nope, I'm just turned off. That is kind of like your children's books. You need to stay open. You need to read. I always ask, or I always want my stories to be authentic. Now, that doesn't mean real necessarily. I just want them to be true to themselves. So, for example, like Where the Wild Things Are, a make-believe land with monsters. Yeah, okay, that's not necessarily, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. But the thing that I loved about that story is that the situation was real. I'm pretty sure, I know I can speak for myself, that everyone has been a troublemaker, or they did something wrong when they were a kid and they were sent to their room. I was sent to my room often, right? So that part is real. That part is really easy to connect to. I also like looking at the balance between the pictures and the text. And I think that kind of depends on your reading level. If it's more of a picture book, you're not going to have many words, but your pictures need to be inviting and they need to be captivating, And then the other one is, how does it connect to the reader? Now, most of your children's books, yes, they are made for children, but they are going to be read to, right? I can remember actually quite specifically when I would start reading by myself. And believe it or not, it was Cat in the Hat. I was really, really proud of myself because I could figure out all the words. And I remember laying down on our disgustingly ugly, we called them the fancy couches, right? Total 1970s floral. Oh my God, they're so ugly. I just remember laying on that couch with a Cat in the Hat book. And I was so excited and proud of myself because I could figure out everything that was going on. But that's not how it started. It started with somebody else reading to me, and then we doing it together, and then me finally reading by myself. So I definitely look at material of how this connect to the parent or the teacher or the person that's reading the story, and then also the child. Can the child figure out context clues? Can he or she make up the story just by looking at the pictures? That kind of thing. I like to look at also the structure. And this kind of leads me to my third point. There are books written about how to write children's books. I'm pretty sure there's other podcasts, there's websites, don't think that because it's a lower reading level that everything is easy, because it's not. I like to use kind of like a 3-part structure or a 3-act structure. Every single high school teacher will always talk about these plot charts. So if you just think about it in threes, because there's a magic of threes: 3 little bears, the 3 pigs, the Holy Trinity, a 3-leaf clover. There's 3 everywhere. So I like to use a 3-act structure. So your first act is when your main character or your protagonist faces a problem, or is it introduced to an obstacle. And this can actually go for like picture books or even like chapter books, for example. So for example, Raylena Hargroves, we were just finishing a little video about her latest called Dexter's Special Rock. and it's adorable, right? So Dexter is taking a nap. Dexter is a duck, and he's taking a nap, and he can't find his rock. There's your introduction to your problem, right? This leads me to number 2. This is the escalation of the problem. So again, in Dexter's Special Rock, Dexter decides he has to go looking for his rock. Now, kind of the fun part about it is section 2, at least for Raylina's book. Section 2 was the longest part. So it's this is kind of like your rising action. This is your, oh my gosh, I lost my rock. I have to actually go across a pond by myself. I have to go up a valley and through a desert, and I'm going to look in the Antarctic, and I'm going to, so you have all of these different ways of solving your problem. It's not done yet, but you just keep on solving. And then, of course, you have your resolution, and that's going to be my Act 3. Resolution is when you actually solve the problem, or you don't. Most children's books will have some kind of a resolve, right? So in that case, Dexter will find his rock. Or in another one, I'm near and dear to my heart is Joe the Swimmer. Joe the Swimmer decides that he wants to swim every single lake or body of water that he sees, but he doesn't know how to swim. There you go. So he learns how to swim. And then he starts going and he's swimming all these different places. And then at the very end, he discovers, yeah, I don't think I need to swim anymore. I think I can just walk. So this does not have to be rocket science by any means, but there is a bit of a formula, right? So you have your introduce a problem, then you have to try to solve your problem throughout many different trials and tribulations, and then you have a resolve of some sort, right? I will say, if you write anything about monsters, do not have the main character or the child be hurt, and monsters cannot touch children. It's just a rule. You just don't. Now, do I think that you should write something about monsters? Yes. Can a child be intrigued? Not terrified, but intrigued? Yeah, you can. Just, we don't want the main character to get hurt, right? So these younger stories, or for younger readers, we're teaching them morals, or we're teaching them how to persevere through an obstacle, or we're teaching them problem-solving skills, that kind of thing. So you're kind of just putting it, kind of a really complex idea in a simplified language and pictures. I know, it's kind of crazy. So this one's going to be relatively short. My little episode will be relatively short. Why? Because here's my call to action. 1, you need to look up your favorite authors and illustrators and send them a note, right? Do it on social media, write to their publisher, send them something, and just let them know how important these stories are. Right? This is extremely, extremely important. Number 2, I'm going to challenge you to read children's books. I don't know, set up a date, take up your friends, your friend group, or your significant other, and go have a speed dating date in the library. You could also do this in a bookstore, which is kind of fun. You can just pick them out, read to each other. I think that would be fun. There's also, this is going to be kind of a random thing. I used to take little kids to the animal shelters, and they would just practice reading to dogs. Like, my cat listens to me talk all the time, and she seems pretty content with it. So read to an animal, read to a little kid, go through your books and see what you like. And then finally, try it out. Try writing one. This doesn't have to be super, super long. I mean, you could think of it as like a 20-line poem with sentences. It doesn't have to be a sentence. It could rhyme. It doesn't have to rhyme. You can do pretty much anything. So I love the flexibility of children's books. But I think it's a different skill set than writing, let's say, a historical romance. You're still using your words, you're still using a complex plot, but this one you have to really practice your word economy, right? So that way it's going to make sense to the adults and the children. So I challenge you to maybe start writing a children's book or a children's novel. There's different reading levels, so I mean, the flexibility is, oh my gosh, can fit anybody. So, when you're trying out your children's story, try to use your 3-act structure. And go ahead, you know what, if you like it, send me your work. I think it would be great. I think it would be a wonderful venture to see what happens with this story. I'm Kynda Faythe, with a Cuppa Creativity in the literary lounge where writing doesn't have to suck. Send me your work. I look forward to reading it. Until next time.